is anything, post them below and source that info, shout at the chat, baby. So, right off the bat, like we said yesterday, jobs, Evergrande, and oil, those are the main themes of the week, and we saw that happen today, but now we did get a little bit more debt ceiling, and now the Facebook issue, that got sprinkled on top of all of it, but a lot of analysts today, they were bringing up just so many different factors. We're looking ahead for the jobs report. There is more talks of inflation. We got to hear from Fed Bullard. People are even talking stagflation. Then you're hearing more about the supply chain issues. And then Evergrande, we did get an update on that today. They were halted at nighttime, pre-market for Hong Kong, but there was an update that Hopson, another developer in China, was going to buy a controlling stake. So we have not gotten updates since. And now, ironically, they had another bond due today. So I don't know how this is slowing down the process. We are going to talk about it, but we got an update there. And then quickly in the morning, we got an update from OPEC. They announced that they are not raising their production. They're keeping it at that 400,000 barrels a day. That sent oil skyrocketing, but everything we were looking at all kind of took a step forward today. You saw the markets react, and then there was a little bit more debt ceiling issues. We're going to find out more about that this week. We do have a timeline, and I have a pretty picture to show you, but then this kind of came out of nowhere. We brought this up on the watch list yesterday, even though there wasn't that much to look out for, but it ended up one issue turning to another. But Facebook, they had one of their biggest drops this year, but it was related to one of their whistleblower stuff, and then all of Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, they all went down today. We even got to see some of the exchanges and trading platforms operate a little bit weird, but this just added to the pain. And now with everything going on, there was a lot to juggle, but this is what a lot of people are talking about, the Big Five, the FANG, and its overall influence on the S&P. And right here, right now, it is about 22% of the S&P 500's value. So despite everything going on, when you look at how the market moved today, the NASDAQ was down 2%, Dow Jones just under 1%, the SPY right in the middle at 1.3. A lot of people are pointing to the effect that tech is having. Again, it is already in a 10% correction mode. If it goes any further, it could start weighing down on the market, and that's exactly what we saw here today. Believe it or not, even throughout the early parts of the day, not every industry was down. You got to see a little bit of hope in the reopening trade, but what some people were pointing to is that even if you got a good reopening trade and a lot of other industries did good, it would not wipe out this difference here, which led to a little bit more pain, and then it kind of spread through the later of the day. So this is very key, how we're going to watch the FANG stocks and where they go from there. I definitely want to just throw this into the mix, but that's what we're seeing. But now, coming into the rest of the week in this second pretty picture, I will say here, we are going to go over the debt ceiling and what you need to understand. Every day that moves forward from here, it becomes more and more important. And then after this week's vote on the debt limit, we're going to get one more vote to try to pass it through. It will become more and more important because now we are just about 10 business days away from that drop dead date that the Treasury has given. So this is what this pretty picture is showing you. It's essentially the roadmap to how the debt limit would get raised and avoid a problem. So as you're seeing here, this is the action that we're taking this week. If the GOP allows the Senate to vote, then they have the majority. They'll pass that through. But now McConnell today, he was saying that they're not going to do that. So now if they don't allow the vote, you have two options. The first option is that the Democrats can do a 2-week budget reconciliation to get the limit increased, and then that would solve their problem. Or the Democrats play chicken and say, well, there you go, we can't do anything. They let the clock run out to the drop dead date, and then 10 GOP senators flip sides and say, okay, we had enough. We're already there. We're playing too much chicken on the deadlight, and then they shift over. Problem solved. Otherwise, if they don't do any voting, it'll lead to a default. Or if they try to do reconciliation a week later from now, or about 2 weeks from now, they will have no time, and then that would lead to a default as well. So clearly, this is going to be a very big issue, and all the signs from the bond movements down to the credit default swaps, and even looking at the yield curve after that drop dead date, it's all pointing to the market getting a little bit more sensitive. So as we approach this date and the rhetoric is getting a really strong from both sides, this is going to be the key. But like I'm saying, it'll get more importance, especially after this vote, because then it triggers another level of this chart, and then the moves that can be made become very, very constrained. So watch out for that. But now for the rest of the week, again, that jobs report is still going to be very important. It relates to the data, Powell tapering, so we can't forget that. The debt ceiling, And then OPEC, they've already got that out the way. But what we got to watch now for is still this energy crisis in general. Watch the price of oil as well as natural gas, even in Europe especially. That's important. And then Evergrande, like we said, that they announced that buyout today, but it's either going to get them a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, or it might just lead to a total snub that could result in a bankruptcy. But now on top of that, today, we also got to hear from another property developer in China, Fantasia, and they defaulted on much less. It was a $200 million loan, but they defaulted on a bond and a payment to another property developer in China. So point is, watch out for the China situation. Watch out for Evergrande. Their market is still going to be closed, but there is still a lot of stuff underneath the surface. And just like we saw last week, we can't really ignore it. It might pop its head out here and there. You may see the importance, then it may die down, but it is still key. And then in the context of the rest of this week, we still have to watch the jobs report. We got to watch what oil is going to do. And then anything related to the debt ceiling or now even the Fed, these are all going to be key. So coming into the company news and events, there really wasn't much. I only got a couple of here, and that's simply because we talked about all of the main events that happened. It was just integral to what we saw here today. But again, Facebook, this really took over today, and Facebook.com as well as Instagram and all of their other companies, they went down, and it was one of their largest, service outages since 2008, and it was the biggest down day for the stock this year. Amazon did go negative on the year today. Facebook is still up, thankfully, so that was good, but today was kind of two-pronged. It started off in the morning with that damning 60 Minutes whistleblower. We talked about that yesterday, but after the interview came out and some of the stuff she said and the records that she had, it was not good. And even though it seems like stuff we've already known, pretty much she was saying that Facebook prioritized making money rather than the safety of users and stuff like that in the content they promoted. It's like we already knew about this, but if you really think about it, since like 2018, even prior to that, 2016, Facebook has been getting cracked down in a lot of scrutiny, and they've been saying a lot of different stuff to the media. They've even been making sure Mark Zuckerberg goes outside so they look more relatable. And then now after this interview, that lady was pretty much saying everything we say to the public, we are not doing. So people didn't like that. The same lady is going to be testifying before the Senate tomorrow. So that was the first part of today. And then again, the services all went down. That was just a big headline in and of itself. I believe they're up now, so we'll see. Follow me on Instagram at The Trading Fraternity. Let me know it works. You know what I'm saying? That's how you could test it. But overall, what happened with Facebook, very, very key. How it plays out coming into tomorrow, even what the whistleblower says, we will see. It could be key, so watch that. And then after hours, since we got that news on another Fed member yesterday, this could kind of ease some of the crowd's calls to just clap everybody at the Fed, but their internal watchdog has opened a new review into the Fed members' trading activity, so it looks like they are now doing some level of investigation on this. It's like a 50-50, we'll see. But that was key. And then this one came out here today, and this is just in the name of a lot of China escalation. There was a lot of headlines between China and Taiwan, and then we even have our trade dispute. We're working out the deals for the trade war and all of that, or from a couple years ago. So there's a lot of that, and we should be hearing about meeting with some China trade members this week. But now one report did come out, and China already condemned it, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear about this a lot more. This is kind of the bombshell news that's been coming out here today, but data has shown that China was purchasing the PCRs in an increased quantity before the first ever known COVID cases. So we got a pretty chart on it, and you could see it, but what it's showing is that coming into 2019, they almost tripled the amount of testing that they were doing in the province where COVID first started to break out in late 2019, early 2020. So a lot of back and forth. I would just chalk this up to China aggression and China rhetoric going back and forth. So we will see how this one plays out. But overall, most of the news is very simple. We have our key cut segments that we need to be watching this week. A lot of things can happen. We are at crucial levels, and depending on how this week plays out, we're going to find out whether or not it's going to look like a strong or uncertain end of the year. So I hope you're ready, but that is pretty much it. So let us get into the plays. So right off the bat, I got 3 different stocks that I'm looking at coming into tomorrow. Actually, one sector, two different stocks. I only made one play today, and that was an average down on TBT. We'll go over it, but overall, we have had pretty decent exposure. If you think about everything going on, we were playing the bonds last week. That accompanies the debt ceiling or any inflation worries. Then we grabbed some of the China plays already. That was a little bit before. Some of those JDs, they're still holding up 100% after today. Then we grabbed the UNG to play some of the natural gas stuff. And then even those old Facebook plays and even some from a couple weeks ago, those are now close to the money and some coming out of the graveyard. So I had interesting exposure, but one thing I'm noticing, the premiums are very, very difficult right now. So it was very hard to find plays. And even as I'm looking out for this, I think we're going to have to be a little bit more diligent. That's why I will be focusing on some of the plays where I could at least see a lot more clarity. That's why I like TBT in the bonds. But now, if you even look at the market, this is what we brought up today, and this is what you really have to watch out for premiums right now, because last time we saw anything like this was 2018, and essentially you could get a big move down levels, and depending on how this week plays out, we're going to find out whether or not it's going to look like a strong or uncertain end of the year. So I hope you're ready, but that is pretty much it. So let us get into the plays. So right off the bat, I got three different stocks that I'm looking at coming into tomorrow. Actually, one sector, two different stocks. I only made one play today, and that was an average down on TBT. We'll go over it, but overall, we have had pretty decent exposure. If you think about everything going on, we were playing the bonds last week. That accompanies the debt ceiling or any inflation worries. Then we grabbed some of the China plays already. That was a little bit before. Some of those JDs, they're still holding up 100% after today. Then we grabbed the UNG to play some of the natural gas stuff, and then even those old Facebook plays and even some from a couple weeks ago, those are now close to the money and some coming out of the graveyard. So I had interesting exposure, but one thing I'm noticing, the premiums are very, very difficult right now. So it was very hard to find plays, and even as I'm looking out for this, I think we're going to have to be a little bit more diligent. That's why I will be focusing on some of the plays where I could at least see a lot more clarity. That's why I like TBT in the bonds. But now, if you even look at the market, this is what we brought up today, and this is what a couple weeks ago, that was a little bit before worries. Then we grabbed some of the China plays already. That was a little. We have had the plays. So right off the bat, I got three different stocks that I'm looking at coming into tomorrow. Actually, one sector, two different stocks. I only made one play today, and that was an average down on TBT. We'll go over it, but overall, we have had pretty decent exposure. If you think about everything going on, we were playing the bonds last week. That accompanies the debt ceiling or any inflation worries. Then we grabbed some of the China plays already. That was a little bit before. Some of those JDs, they're still holding up 100% after today. Then we grabbed the UNG to play some of the natural gas stuff, and then even those old Facebook plays and even some from a couple weeks ago, those are now close to the money and some coming out of the graveyard. So I had interesting exposure, but one thing I'm noticing, the premiums are very, very difficult right now. So it was very hard to find plays, and even as I'm looking out for this, I think we're going to have to be a little bit more diligent. That's why I will be focusing on some of the plays where I could at least see a lot more clarity. That's why I like TBT in the bonds. But now, if you even look at the market, this is what we brought up today, and this is what you really have to watch out for premiums right now, because last time we saw anything like this was 2018, and essentially you could get a big move down, but then what ends up happening, if there's enough volatility, it could end up leading to really no move at all. And now this is October 2018, and this was the last time that the tech stocks broke below their 200-day moving average. And what you see is this one big drop, but then it pops and then comes down and then comes back up and then drops really big leading into the end of the year. But I was alive in trading. I remember making a lot of money here, then losing money, then making money, and then losing money. And pretty much by the end of this, I ended up going break even, because this is a hard environment to trade. Usually your best bet is getting in the money and staying in the money, or even the shares. So that's why how you focus, and then you'll even see from the plays I have today, the focus and what you're looking at will be very important, especially if we get a whipsaw this large. It's not that the market goes down or up, but when it does it in this big of moves and you see the candles and the volatility, this could slow the options down, and that's just something I've been noticing. So keep that in mind. But as far as TBT, I still think I'm early on this play, and pretty much I'm playing it for the jobs report. I did average down. I grabbed more today. But again, that is playing this jobs report catalyst. And then if there isn't any sort of big move with it, I'm going to start looking for ones with more time beyond the November ones. Because remember, I started with January, then I went for November. Today I averaged on the November ones. The premiums are still a little bit up there, and it's a volatility index type play. So it's going to be very volatile. That's where I'm thinking I have my opportunity in it. So going to be going back and forth, but we have one catalyst this week. But all in all, everything we're seeing, what's being talked about, it looks like all signs are pointing to more inflation. We're going to hear about it more, if anything, how many times it gets mentioned by the end of these transcripts or these earnings. That will be the nail in the coffin. But overall, the real question is, how long does it take until this gets reflected in bonds? So kind of playing a weird timing game with it. That's the only part I don't like. However, with a lot of this stuff going on right now, I just like the general idea. So I'm going to be watching that. As far as the play, I grabbed the November 19th $20 calls. I grabbed 20 of them at 23 cents, spent about $460. They got to move a little bit, not too much from where I got them. But now the other ones, I had 22 calls, so I got to go closer to the money. I'm down 40% on those 22. So this is my first average down. Those Januaries are still holding up. So that's my strategy going forward. We're going to attack the short terms a little bit. I still have way more money on the longer runs, but depending on how these next few weeks play out, it's going to give us our confirmation, and now we're pretty positioned, and we'll see what happens. So keep your eye out for that, and like I'm saying, I still think I'm early. A lot of this stuff and what's pointing towards inflation, it usually takes some time to get reflected. So I think the idea is there. That's what I'm saying. The timing will be the only thing that is difficult, but watch out for that. Then coming into the second play, Merck, we had these, and we've been talking about them. They moved interesting today, but I'm going to be watching for the delayed catalyst again once they get that approval. So this could be a swing trade in the next few months, but even then, in the short term, I still like it because now they have news that is pretty much separate from everything going on. So it's very positive. They held up again today. They even moved big, so I like it. The contracts are still juiced. That's what's going to make it interesting to find a good play. But overall, if the market does see a lot of volatility, finding companies that have their own little news and staying in their own lane, that could be good. And Merck is right there in that category. So watch them. And then finally, Amazon and Microsoft. I'm really liking this, just even FANG in general. It may be good to either play them both ways. I'm a little bit worried on it, but in general, I do want to just focus on some of these trades. Instead of even playing the S&P, you might be able to just get more meaningful returns out of this. You know, a lot of plays on UVXY, SPY, all of that. Those could be good, but it seems like some of the opportunity in these names could be a little bit higher, especially as they are moving the market more and now kind of even have a weird target on their back. So those are the big movers. This is where a lot of big movers are coming from and have came from. Going to be watching those coming into the rest of the week, even next week. So those are going to be the main plays as far as everything else. Going to be watching Facebook, still holding those plays. UNG, I still like it for oil. Again, they went up today, went up big. Those plays were up at 50% at one point, came down to 30%, but still going to be watching those. Again, TBT, you can see it holding up comparatively to TLT. BABA, they hit another new low, and now my options are still coming up. The one's doing better is JD, but now they are slowing down a little bit. We need to see what happens, but going to be watching the China stocks. Even some of the China EVs got clapped a little bit, so keep your eye on them. And then Amazon, they are now below their 2021 level. This is what I'm saying with some of the moves, the market, and how this could spread into other things or what are going to be the real leaders. I think it's going to be a real key to watch Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Apple, any of those. So watch out for them. United Steel, I was expecting a little bit more. It did hold up today, so watch out again, any of the reopening trade as well. So you even see some names did good, like McDonald's, going to be watching them. But point is, just because the FANG stocks did good, they couldn't outweigh the negative pressure from there, but it doesn't mean that some names weren't doing good today. So watch out for them. Watch out for Airbnb. I like this as the reopening trade, but a big down day today. We did make our long-term deposit. I have my money. I'm waiting on it here. If Airbnb does fall below 157, I can't consider it. Otherwise, I am going to be looking at plays like Abivire, AT&T right before their ex-dividend, so watch them. Watch Uber. Again, another reopening trade. It has been holding up, so I like it there, but I want to watch them alongside of AAL. Just some of these companies that aren't tech-related this week, depending on how the news plays out, assuming the whole market doesn't get drawn down by any bad news from either China or the debt ceiling, I do want to pay attention to some of the areas that are showing growth or that could be a valid rotation space. So watch out for that. Then Oracle and ACAM, just given some of the internet issues today, I do want to keep an eye on them, especially ACAM. I think it's traded a little bit weird here, but remember a couple weeks ago, we did have another weird internet outage, so ACAM was to blame. It was DNS, I believe. So some people are saying that's what happened there with Facebook, so watch out for them. Oracle's a little bit better, but I keep my eye out for them. And then finally, TLT and the dollar, baby. As far as TLT, it did not break above this level. It moved very wild, and one thing that's hard to see, this was down 10%. It was down about a quarter at one point. TLT moving a quarter of a percent, that's pretty big, but given how it gapped down and came back up, you didn't really get to see it. But essentially, the bonds did not move as much. SPY and NASDAQ and Dow, especially the NASDAQ, came down. Essentially, now you have the markets coming down to the bonds. Think about how that affects the correlation. But the real next key is, when does it break? It's either going to get back above here and start another trend, or chill out, and then maybe people say, okay, inflation's not bad and all that, or otherwise it's going to have to break below. And if it breaks below here, this is now back to 155. It usually trends right back up to 17. Again, last time we fell from here, that's why it was such a key support level, because this means a lot for the rates. So that's pretty much our next point to watch at Snitch. Even though the dollar did come down today, it is now back at this level, and that's the key to watch. But watch for a delayed effect with the dollar. I'm actually expecting a little bit more strength. It may not happen right away, but some people are expecting the euro to drop about 10%. I think that will have an effect. The only thing that's countering the dollar right now, and you have to factor it in, it is oil, and oil is surging. That makes your dollar go down in value. Costs you more dollars for the same barrel of oil. So there's a lot of things pushing and pulling it, but like we said, dollar is going to be more international. Domestically, I think the factor that's really going to snitch on things, it's going to be the bonds. If we see them go higher, even if the market doesn't respond, that will be a trigger, and it will tell you something about the overall state in view of inflation, along with all of the other issues that we are dealing with. But that is your watch list, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure hydrate, healthy, ready to go. Make sure post your watch list. Make sure we see you there in the morning. I need the armor on. I need the helmet shine. I need you. Remember, you gotta want it, baby. But Deco loves you. I love you. I'm gonna see you in the morning. Let's go.
We've got about 30 minutes to the bell. UONE is gapping up 74%, which is incredible. And my goodness, COHN is the leading gapper up 185%. The high is 2251, which is, I mean, it's kind
And hit the thumbs up button. Second link for the Nightly Wassas and main channel. If you ever miss anything, we are going to recap it all. So, hope you're ready. Hope you're excited, especially after yesterday. We had a lot of little floozies, including Facebook and all of that. It looks like everything's better today. We got to hear from some Fed people already. We are going to be getting some other data this week. We got a couple of events here, but today seems like it will be a little bit chill. So, we're going to see what happens. We are still trading below the 100-day moving average. 200-day moving average is broken on the FANG stocks. We're going to be watching rates. We still got oil. We still got a lot of the other stuff. And then jobs report at the end of the week. So I hope you're ready. But it's all going to be exciting. However, you need to be in the game. So good morning. How are you? Hello, my guy. What's good? What's up, Mr. Dirtfinger? Good morning. Oh, Mr. Rocha. Good morning, Evan. Oh, I always see Evan in the morning. That sounds like a radio show. Evan in the morning, brought to you by Colt 101.5. Oh, Scrooge, Tanner, Lori. Good morning. Oh, good morning, Mr. Schwarten, Mr. Malone, Delphia. This is the place to be, Mr. Tarantino. Woo, Mr. Rogers. Good morning, Mr. Kufel. Good morning, John Arnold, Jerry, Marcelina, Carissa, Jimmy, Trey. Oh, man, how y'all living? Hefe, Tyler Brown, Brian, oh, good morning. Beautiful day to be alive. Beautiful day to be alive. Actually, it was raining and thundery in California. Y'all remember that? Or y'all see that? I know we freak out in California. Everybody's like, oh, my gosh, we got thunder. Oh, my gosh, we got all this thunder. That was crazy, but it's a good morning. Still a good morning, baby. It's still a good morning. So, oh, you made it. Josh, oh, you made it. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. The lightning blew up some trees. Bro, I got scared. Bro, I was in the gym and I had my headphones on, and I literally thought I was under siege. I don't know how to explain it. All I heard was, and then I heard it beneath the headphones. I was like, oh, shit. I was like, someone's about to run up on us with a whole army or something. I was freaked out, bro. I like dropped the weights. I start taking my headphones off. I'm looking around bro, it was crazy. It was crazy. So, hey, listen, we're back, though. We're good to go. We're all safe. It was, whew, he got catapults, bro. I'm telling you. It was nuts. It was nuts. So, I hope you're ready today. Let's see what today brings. I think today is honestly going to be a lot more chill. Considering the schedule and how yesterday has relaxed a little bit. We haven't got any other updates overseas or nothing too negative, so we will see what happens here. But getting into it, futures rose, NASDAQ contracts outperforming the dollar game while treasuries nudge down, oil push higher as gold declined. Cryptos advanced with Bitcoin topping 50,000. China's heavily leveraged property firms saw stocks and bonds tumble after Fantasia's failure to repay notes. Fantasia was cut to restricted default by Fitch, debt ceiling anxiety tracker. Treasury will sell a $25 billion 8-day cash management bill to bolster its coffers before the mid-month coupon settles. Ooh, excuse me. And as the government's cash pile shrivels, dislocations in the bill curve extended yesterday. The yield on the October 21st maturity climbed as much to 5 basis points to 0.12, with most bills maturing earlier and later, yielding 0.05. Facebook fracas. The companies blame network configuration changes as the most probable cause of the global service outage. Said no user data was compromised. Share rose pre-market. Other social platforms gained. Signal signed up millions of new users and got an endorsement from Twitter's Jack Dorsey. Telegram surged 55 places to the top U.S. iPhone download chart. Wow. So a lot of people went to a lot of things yesterday. That's crazy. That's crazy. In the Senate today, whistleblower Francis Haugen will claim Facebook concealed internal research to the harmful effects of its platforms. The Fed will investigate itself. We got that last night. Its internal watchdog will examine whether trading activity by senior officials complied with ethics, rules, and laws. The bank's efforts haven't been appeased with critics like Elizabeth Warren, who wants the SEC to probe whether the transaction broke insider trading rules. Bets on Jerome to get a second term have fallen since the trading revelation. Contracts on Powell getting reappointed tumbled from 90% last month to as low as 61% on predicted. Laelo Brainer's odds have risen. Uh-oh. I didn't even know they had these. I guess people are betting on Powell's renomination. It looks like Powell is only 61% as likely now. Uh-oh. I wonder what that means for the market. That's crazy. B of A's crypto basket has some surprises. The 20 or so names, including the likes of PayPal and Coinbase, as well as Black Hills, a utility in the most advanced digital asset regulatory strategy, and ADM and Bunge, which are using blockchain for transactions to agriculture trade. Firm said it is growing institutional and retail demand for digital asset content. The SPAC boom has House Democrats pondering aggressive response. A ban on Wall Street's marketing blank check companies to retail investors. Proposal comes ahead of a panel hearing with Gary Gensler. Another draft bill would kick companies off of stock exchange if they don't disclose the diversity of their leadership. Virus, AstraZeneca submitted its antibody cocktail for U.S. emergency approval. Medicine was 77% effective in the clinical trial. Global energy crisis is the first big one in the transition to clean power, but it won't last for long. The surge in electricity demand combined with fuel price volatility means the world may be in for a rocky few decades, with consequences ranging from energy-driven inflation, exasperating income inequalities, to power outages and lost economic output. More in the big take. Goldman, JP, and Morgan Stanley captured 46% of the global market for trading stocks and bonds in the first half, increase of almost 6 percentage points from the same period in 2019. The shares commanded by European leaders fell to about 32%. Today, 9:45, you're going to get the September services composite PMI, ISM services at 10 a.m., Facebook whistleblower at 10 a.m., 10:15. Biden meets with House Democrats about infrastructure bill. 12 p.m., Gensler testifies before House Financial Service Committee. 1:15 for Fed quarrels, and Biden to speak on infrastructure and social spending at 3:30. So, actually, a pretty action-packed days on the news front, or not the news front, the speaking front. But again, ISM and a couple data points are going to come out here right after the market opens. Let's see what we got here. Biden is open to means testing for some social spending programs to lower the price tag of his spending bill. Person familiar said he told progressives and House leaderships he expects the legislation to eventually be in the range of 1.9 to 2.2. He meets with moderates today. Trade deficit widened at $7.93 billion in August. The ISM may have fallen this last month. Oh, the trade deficit came out? Is that going to be, oh no, the trade balance? Oh, we need to see this one. Where is it? Trade balance. Uh-oh. It came down again. Remember? I showed you this one. That means dollar very strong. But dollar came up since last time. If you think about it, dollar came up a lot since last time. Very, very key. Very, very key. Toronto home sales post increase. Romanian PM Florin Citu and his government were toppled in a no-confidence vote. Prices paid by consumers in UK service sector rose at the fastest pace on record last month. Energy prices signaling spiraling and shortage of staff in haulage, agriculture, and meat processing. Firms have been forced to pass on the cost to consumers. French industrial production beat estimates in August, gaining 1% from July. China won't impose an anti-sanction law in Hong Kong for now. HKO1 reported a backtrack from a move that alarmed businesses and execs from Hong Kong mainland. Financial firms raised concerns with Vice Premier Li Hu. China ordered its banks to ramp up funding to coal and energy companies, another step in its efforts to ease a power crunch and ensure supplies this winter. Banks and other financial institutions should prioritize lending to qualified mines and power plants so they can increase thermal, coal, and electricity output. It also barred loans for speculating in commodities and certain luxury goods. Oil extended its gain with WTI closing in on 80 a barrel. Woo! That's crazy. Clean fuels also climbed. Gold snapped a 3-day gain. Copper edged lower as investors continue to assess escalating inflationary pressures. Europe and natural gas and power prices soared to fresh records. China will begin receiving a big flow of contracted LNG from key supplier. LNG demand will continue to rise this winter, and producers may not be able to provide enough supply. Poland's PG&IG said another hike in gas prices is inevitable. Gazprom plans to supply 227 billion cubic meters of its own gas to domestic markets. Apollo and Brookfield are among firms that made first bids for a potential multi-billion-dollar stake in Saudi's Aramco natural gas pipeline. Blackstone is raising capital from retail investors for its new Europe property fund. ABSA and Sanlam Investment Management merged to form a firm with over $67 billion in assets. Pepsi boosted its organic revenue, view sales, and EPS beat. Shares rose pre-market. Citi hired former Credit Suisse executive as the EMEA head of its unit that helps hedge funds set up and grow their businesses. Qantas started a process to buy 100 new planes worth more than $9 billion by 2034. It's mulling Boeing 737 MAX and Airbus, as well as the small Embraer EJ E2 and Airbus A22. Microsoft is launching Windows 11 powered hardware worldwide today, but made the OS update available early for eligible devices in New Zealand and places like yesterday. The EU expected to sell. Top story, JPM restricts business travel for unvaccinated employees. Hollywood Union authorizes strike, set stage for shutdown. Apple accused of bad faith in Ericsson patent royalty talks. COVID pills of Merck and Redhill send Asian stocks lower. JP Morgan hires B of A's Heisman as head of EMEA. Goldman China stock hedge fund clients lose 2.7 this year. J&J submits data to FDA to support COVID booster. NASDAQ 100 in oversold territory as bears prowl tech stocks. Venom sequel has top opening weekend for the pandemic. And then Apple analysts see strong iPhone demand and App Store growth. Tesla was ordered to pay $137 million for damages, turning a blind eye to racial taunts and offensive graffiti of one of their employee. I think that's it. And then on this day in history, the first James Bond movie had its premiere in London in 1962 with Sean Connery. Look at that, the first ever. The first ever. So let's see what else we got here. Let's check a look at again, remind me of this trade balance. We're going to need to bring this up. Let's look at the world indexes. Looks like Europe's doing pretty decent, all below 1%. Hong Kong is clapped again, down 2%. Remember, China is closed there, so those aren't moving, but seems like other stuff in Asia not doing as well. I know Japan sold off. Japan was a little, I'm surprised this one wasn't in the market wrap here this morning. But Japan, their new president, the market's pretty disappointed. They were expecting some big changes from him, but he seems to be a dud in that space, so they're not going too nuts. But there's that. Let's take a look at some pre-market movers here. Agrify, AGFY, Source 13. After the maker of equipment and software for cannabis cultivation agreed to buy 2 companies that provide equipment for marijuana plants. Apple is seeing strong initial demand for iPhone 13, according to KeyBank Capital Markets. Shares are up 0.2. CryptoXO stocks rally pre-market Tuesday after Bitcoin climbed above 50,000. CommScope COMM shares declined 2.1 after being downgraded from neutral from outperform at Credit Suisse. Facebook shares look undervalued following recent weakness, according to Morningstar, which writes a lengthy outage across social media apps will have a negligible impact on revenue or user engagement. Shares are up 1.1. Flux Power FLUX rises as much as 7 after H.C. Wainwright initiated coverage with the buy rating. Ocugen OCGN climbs 11% in Monday's post-market trading after the biotech company said the Hong Kong-based listed CanSino would add their gene therapy product candidate for eye disease. Sprouts Farmers SFM market is downgraded to underperform. Stocks down 3.5. U.S. listed China stocks climb pre-market trading after hitting their 17-month lows just recently. And then UpHealth UPH falls 31% in trading after pricing its share offering at a discount. Wow. I'm in the call. So, seems like we got a lot here on our plate, but it does seem, does it seem a lot calmer than yesterday? It seems like you got a lot more calmer here, so whatever happens Tuesday could be a little bit better, but it still looks like definitely a lot of things could happen. Pretty much that first 30 minutes an hour, a lot of data, a lot of other potential speeches and whatnot, but doesn't matter what we got, ladies and gentlemen. Does not matter what we got because we live in the land of opportunity. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you realize the blessings you have here at the Cult. We like to acknowledge them every single day, every single morning. And before we try to enrich ourselves, before we try to chase a dollar, we must pay homage to the people who have sacrificed more than most of us ever have and ever will. And that is the veterans of the United States of America. So on behalf of the Cult, the people here, the people not here, I know they feel the exact same way I do. We want to give a huge shout out to all the veterans, active servicemen, past servicemen, anybody who has served this country. God bless you and thank you, thank you, thank you. And shout out to the police officers, the firefighters, the doctors, the nurses, the teachers, all the other public service out there too, baby. God bless you and thank you for doing what you have done. But ladies and gentlemen, please rise. Place your right hand over your heart. Say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, baby.